And here's Lindsey Graham taking joy in, and I'm quoting, Russians dying. Best money we ever spent. If you can spend money to make people die, that is money well spent. You freak. Lindsey Graham is a physical coward. Of course he is. All the chicken hawks are. That's why they don't fight the wars. But Lindsey Graham is saying because they are in this group, they must die.
Lindsey Graham is a coward and a war criminal. Can't say I disagree, but that's what Tucker Carlson is saying here. And in this clip, he gets into some of the particulars of the most abhorrent foreign policy misadventures, and that's putting it lightly, that Lindsey Graham supports, and why no one can support Lindsey Graham because of it, and people that think the same as him. So let's watch this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Lindsey Graham, of all members, except maybe that weird guy from Florida, Randy Fine, who's like openly endorsing genocide. Lindsey Graham, of every member of Congress, can be relied upon at every public event, every photo opportunity, every time you run into him on the street, to be calling for the murder of somebody. Killing is the point of Lindsey Graham's political career. Trying to convince the rest of us to get on board with killing when we won't, screaming at us and calling us names, and you're the hater because you're not on board with killing this or that person. It's all about killing people. I want to give you a second example. This is Lindsey Graham, who's from the very beginning been a staunch supporter of really one of the most brutal dictators, let's just say it out loud, in Europe in 80 years, and that would be Zelensky, the unelected dictator of Ukraine, who's basically devoting half of his life to extinguishing Christianity in Ukraine. All of us are supposed to ignore that, but it's actually happening, putting priests in jail, killing his political opponents, murdering critics. That's happening right now. Lindsey Graham, of course, loves him because he's doing a lot of killing the right people, as Lindsey put it. Here's Lindsey Graham in a conversation with Zelensky. And sorry, another parenthetical note. Graham and Zelensky, both of whom are hardened warriors who run around in military uniforms talking about how tough they are, neither one will ever sit for an interview that isn't a kiss-ass interview. I've made about 100 requests to each of them. No. So they interview each other. But here's Lindsey Graham talking to Prime Minister Zelensky about killing. Watch.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are down.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
Just imagine that. The best money we ever spent is funneling in it to a proxy war versus nuclear Russia, encouraging brinksmanship with Russia over this stupid debacle that's playing out in Eastern Europe, where the United States got into that in the mid-90s, deciding to expand NATO in 5 waves eventually, then cooing and overthrowing the democratically elected government there in Ukraine in 2014, the Yanukovych government. It makes no sense to continue this charade, and Lindsey Graham's a total chicken hawk, totally cowardly, unwilling to fight himself, of course, and he's the one that is saying that people need to die, literally saying that. With American taxpayer money, he also had that conference recently saying that the right people are dying in Gaza. Well, of course, he means as part of that right people, I guess, about 20,000 Palestinian children. I'm sorry, no. And Tucker's right. Zelensky is a dictator. He has jailed priests and banned Eastern Orthodox churches, suppressed political dissent, shut down adversarial media agencies and media companies, imposed martial law, and we're supposed to support this guy. Why? For democracy. It's a total charade.
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. Again, just encouraging you to think about what you're hearing for a second, because all of a sudden we live in a moment when a lot of people are espousing violence. It's funny, a year ago, if you had asked, a year on election night, if you had asked a lot of Trump voters, like, why are you voting for Trump? They would give positive reasons. I really think that the American government should serve American citizens. I believe in America first. But they would also, I think, say, I'm really afraid of the other guys. And two of the things that bother me most about them is they don't believe in free speech. They're constantly pushing for censorship. And their rhetoric is violent. They're encouraging violence. They encourage the BLM riots. They encourage violence all the time.
Yeah, and violence overseas and these overseas debacles, they never pay a dividend to the American people. None of them. None of the regime change operations, none of the proxy wars like the one in Ukraine or the one in Yemen being fought on behalf of the Saudis that the U.S. has been involved with for over a decade, or the one in Somalia, which Israel has wanted. That has been going on for, 25 years now, that war, with the United States bankrolling it. We've ramped up bombings there to the highest level they've ever been this year, according to Dave DeCamp, heroic journalist at antiwar.com. That's the truth. This is senseless, it's absurd, and it exposes the neocons for the vile people that they are, to support these policies, to support people dying en masse. And we're just supposed to be like, yeah, that's, business as usual. We're just going to continue to accept it in this new media landscape that finally exposes it. I say no.
And yet, a year later, here you have all these leading Republicans doing, what are they doing? Oh, demanding censorship. Should be fired for saying that. You shouldn't platform someone, meaning you shouldn't let them talk. And you shouldn't be allowed to talk to people we disagree with. All of a sudden, we're in charge of who you talk to. That's not totalitarian or anything. I can choose who you talk to. And we're going to just openly say that people we don't like should die. Should die. And here's Lindsey Graham taking joy in, and I'm quoting, Russians dying. Best money we ever spent. If you can spend money to make people die, that is money well spent. You freak. By the way, it's not, here are the 5 generals or 10 generals or list of people we think are responsible for war crimes in the Donbass. Okay. I mean, we can debate whether they are or not. Probably not, but maybe they are. And you'd say the person who committed the crime is being punished. But Lindsey Graham, who has a completely non-Western understanding of justice, is saying, because they are in this group, they must die. So that's the distinction. And this is the actual fight. It's a fight between people who understand justice the way that Christians understand justice, which is on an individual basis. We punish the guilty. We punish the person for committing the crime. We don't punish his kids, people who share the same last name or live down the street from him or look like him or are somehow related to him, speak the same language as him, because they didn't do anything wrong.
This is exactly right. This is the individual mechanism that is the building block of society, that people are culpable for their actions and they don't inherit the sins of their parents or the virtues of their parents, by the way. And that is really something that we can't get away from. We can't escape it. It's part of the fiber of humanity. And Tucker's right. Right-wingers that railed so justifiably so against people like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and John Kerry and AOC and Hillary Clinton, all of which did call for increased censorship on the internet. Remember, to police disinformation. Biden tried to create the disinformation ministry. Well, the same Republicans that railed against that, many of them are supporting rewriting hate speech laws in the American states to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, so that you can criminalize critiques against Israel. And if you don't believe me, look this up. Many states have started to rewrite their codes to do this. States like Arizona and Georgia and Illinois and Iowa and North Carolina. There are several more that have done this just as a reaction to the increased criticism toward Israel. That's what you get. That's the right-wing, conservative flavor of censorship that they told us we would get if we'd elect Democrats. Well, we're still going to get it, it seems like.
We don't punish the innocent in Christianity because we believe in the human soul, the individual soul. We don't think we're judged as a group. We think we are judged as individuals. We'll stand alone before God to account for what we did. Not for what our kids did, not for what our grandparents did, not for what our neighbors did or our countrymen did or our leaders did, but for what we did. And that is the basis of Western justice. And it's being abandoned. And without a fight, because people don't understand what is happening. But make no mistake, the attitude that you just heard from Lindsey Graham is an Eastern understanding, a non-Christian understanding of justice. The Russians, what does that mean? What Russians? Just Russians. They're dying. Best money we ever spent. So you're watching two things. You're watching someone who's embraced collective punishment, as Israel has, as most of the world has. By the way, it's not just Israel, and it's not just Lindsey Graham. It's most countries at most times in history believed in collective punishment and collective reward.
And I'm sorry to say my own criminal government does that on such a wide scale during the War on Terror. You know, I spent my years as a young man watching this. The War on Terror killed 5 million people. What is more collective punishment than that? The majority, I'm sorry, were not part of, the criminal, tyrannical regimes that they told us about, by the way. They were civilians, people with dreams and aspirations that they'll never have because bombs were dropped on them. To no benefit of Americans, that just caused debt and suffering and our soldiers to die in the course of those conflicts. PTSD, inflation when the central bank financed it, a perversion and bastardization and elimination of our civil liberties in the form of the Patriot Act, the DHS, etc. And yeah, if you're a Christian, you believe that you do have to account for God. Read 2 Corinthians 5:10 if you don't believe me on that one. Some people it won't matter to some people that aren't Christians watching that, but if you are a Christian, I beseech you, if you take issue with this, read that verse.
You're the favored group. You're the Tutsis, and you get a better deal or whatever. You're the chosen people in whatever society or religion, but you're the Brahmins. You get, because of your DNA, a better deal. The diversity, DEI, affirmative action, they're all species of the same kind of thinking, which is collective thinking, which denies the reality of the individual human soul. And it is therefore anti-Christian. And the entire West was set up as a bulwark against that kind of thinking. And that's why it succeeded. And that's why it's been free and prosperous and happy.
Far less free and prosperous and happy than it once was, to be sure. But yeah, that should be the building block of our society. And that's why collectivist mindsets on both sides, whether it's kind of the left-wing flavor of that or right-wing variant of that, they're always poisonous because that. It denies the individuality, both in terms of virtue and responsibility for crimes and immoral behavior. That's just the truth. So I don't favor with the left-wing side of collectivism or the right-wing side of collectivism. It's all about individuals and individual rights. And you can't claim to be, for minority rights if you aren't a fan of individual rights, because an individual is the smallest minority on earth.
And people like Lindsey Graham don't acknowledge that. And instead they worship death. And he has, as noted, a long career of doing this. This is not a conservative principle. This is not a Christian principle. This is a left-wing, atheist, agnostic at best principle. This is the I am God, I'll kill whom I want, when I want principle. And it's been on display his whole life. On January 6th, Lindsey Graham said to a Capitol Hill police officer, "You guys have guns. Why don't you shoot them all in the head? I wish you had." Shoot them all in the head? These aren't Russians. These are Americans. These are like 60-year-old ladies with pocket constitutions in their handbags and diabetes and bad knees who thought their election was stolen from them because they believe in the system. And so they marched on the Capitol. They didn't know at the time that there were like 230 FBI, whatever they were, agents, provocateurs, that the whole thing was managed. Some of us sensed that immediately. Lindsey Graham could find out. Maybe he has. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care because he ran with that same stupid unarmed insurrection narrative. Yeah, this was an insurrection of unarmed people. No, when people say that, it just shows their historical ignorance on a level that is kind of unprecedented. If you want to see what a coup looks like, look at Julius Caesar's March on Rome, or Pride's Purge in England, or the coup of 18 Brumaire that brought Napoleon to power. I'm sorry, this wasn't an insurrection. It was a Fed entrapment scheme in which the only murder was done and perpetrated by Capitol Hill police on Ashley Babbitt. Rest in peace, Ashley Babbitt. That whole thing was a facade, and if Lindsey Graham said that, I wasn't even actually aware of that, by the way. And I've studied this issue, so it surprised me. But wow, how monstrous is that? Shoot these Americans in the head. No due process. Don't follow the Constitution. Ignore that Fifth Amendment. It's pretty pesky if you're looking at the perception of totalitarians like Lindsey Graham. Yeah, no Fifth Amendment. Shoot Americans. Absurd.
Those people, in some cases, lured into this trap, allowed into the Capitol by security. That's on videotape. We're not guessing. Those people should be executed because what? They made him scared, and he was scared. on 9/11. Talk to his colleagues. I have. Lindsey Graham was terrified. Lindsey Graham is a physical coward. Of course he is. All the chicken hawks are. That's why they don't fight the wars, but they're also victims in this. When you call for the deaths of others, when you regard other people's lives as meaningless, when you think it's the best use of federal tax dollars to murder them, as he does, you become more afraid for your own life. It's always true. Dictators are always paranoid and afraid. They're never brave, ever.
Yeah, I mean, prototypical example, Joseph Stalin. He had megalomaniacal tendencies. He was always apprehensive that, one of his political rivals would overtake him, undermine him, overpower him, and he had multitudes of them executed for that. The famous pictures of him, besides some of them disappearing the other individual in some of the future pictures that would depict the same occasion. This is very true. Mao Zedong, same thing. Read about Lin Biao if you don't believe me on that one. That is the case about these totalitarian leaders.
And Lindsey Graham is no different. Shoot them in the face. So the idea that Lindsey Graham is a conservative, with the caveat that, who even knows what a conservative is now? Conservative? Is Mark Levin a conservative? Is Dave Rubin, whoever that is he conservative? Okay, I guess. Whatever. But if those are the people, Ted Cruz, conservative? Let's take a close look at Ted Cruz's life. What's conservative about it? Let's take a close look at Lindsey Graham's life. Is that conservative? And what's the reference point for that? What do you even mean?
Well, what they mean by that is neoconservative, which departs from the classic conception of conservatism. You maybe might root that in Edmund Burke, kind of the prototypical paleo-conservative that he was, where he didn't want endless foreign wars, including the war against the fledgling United States. He didn't want Britain to fight against the American colonies that had risen up and asserted political sovereignty. He didn't want that fight. He didn't want endless overseas, expenditures over things that didn't favor his own home country. But that's what all these neocon stooges do. It's the benchmark is neoconservatism, which has mostly played out since the 1960s. It was a departure from classic conservatism. And it's based on bloodshed. It's based on this fallacious idea that you can export democracy overseas, and that'll always pay dividends in a unipolar world. Well, not only are we not in a unipolar world anymore, it's largely because of the way that the United States and my criminal government has behaved when there was a unipolar world after the fall of the Soviet Union, when the U.S. stood as essentially the sole superpower. It's the way that the U.S. that has behaved that's led to the BRICS alliance and has led to Russia and China being in each other's arms so much closer, and India falling into that too, with 50% tariffs slapped onto India for no reason. The only reason is they traded with Russia. They dared to do that. So this is what we get from neocon foreign policy expeditions. Trump isn't stopping this tendency, this absurd wave of destruction and pernicious policies to kind of unveil and unleash themselves and manifest in other ways in domestic policy, cause insane amounts of debts, and always lead to curtailments of civil liberties, pitting citizens against each other. You side with Hamas. If you don't support Israel, you're a Putin agent. If you don't want to fund a $200 billion proxy war versus Russia. It's all so absurd, but it's all because of this stupid foreign policy regime. But do you agree with Tucker Carlson? Is Lindsey Graham a supervillain? Are the neocons abhorrent? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Tucker Carlson too. Awesome segment. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member of mine. You can click the join button below to do that. If you do that, I thank you profusely, and in return, I'll give you the gift of getting access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. Those are the members only videos. And also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. I'll email that right to you, free of charge, no obligation. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.